At $2,500 a month, something quiet and strange happens to your money machine. It gets big enough to cover a normal person's core bills entirely on its own. The rent, the food, the lights, the way you get to work, handled by the pile every single month. But that is not even the wild part. The wild part is this. Once the machine is this size, you could stop feeding it completely, never add another dollar, and still drift all the way to full financial independence on autopilot. That is not a fantasy. It has a name. It is called coast mode. And today, I am going to show you exactly how it works and the number it takes to reach it. Here is the plan for the next few minutes. First, I will remind you how this whole ladder works. The one piece of math that turns any monthly income into the exact pile it takes to fund it. Then I will give you the number for this rung, and it is a big halfway kind of number. After that, 6 unlocks. 6 things that become true the moment your machine pays you $2,500 a month. 1. Coast FI. The big idea. You can stop adding and still finish. 2. It covers the core, not the extras. 3. One income in a household becomes optional. 4. Time itself becomes the dividend. 5. The strange psychology of the halfway point. And 6. Told honestly, the moment sequence of returns risk enters the chat. Then, how to actually reach coast mode. Let us start with the machine. Every rung on this ladder runs on one idea, so let me hand it to you again because we use it the whole series. There is a long-standing planning rule of thumb that a sensible invested pile can pay out about 4% of itself every year, roughly forever, without the pile running dry. It is a rule of thumb, not a guarantee, but it is the anchor. And if you run the arithmetic backwards, it collapses into something you can do in your head. To find the pile that pays a given monthly income, you multiply that monthly income by 300. That is the whole trick. 300. Want $1,000 a month? 300,000 invested. Want $2,000 a month? 600,000. Every step on this ladder is just that one multiplication. So let us do it for $2,500 a month. 2,500 times 300 is $750,000. That is the number, $750,000 invested in boring, broad index funds throws off around $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year, that you can take without shrinking the original pile. And notice where that lands you. The top rung of this whole ladder is around $3 million. $750,000 is roughly halfway there. You are standing at the midpoint of the climb, and as you will see, the halfway point behaves very differently from the bottom. Hold that number. Everything today hangs off it. Unlock one, and it is the big one. This is the rung where Coast FI switches on. Here is the idea. Up to now, the machine has needed you. Every month, you fed it a contribution, and it grew because of your money plus a little of its own. But at $750,000, the pile is now so large that its own growth does something remarkable. It can carry the machine to the top of the ladder without another single dollar from you. Think about it in slow motion. A pile this size, compounding quietly year after year, roughly doubles on its own over a long enough stretch. So the $750,000 you have today can grow into the full independence number entirely on the machine's own steam, while you sit back and add nothing. That is Coast FI. You are not done. You are not living off it yet. But you have already put in enough seed. The engine has reached escape velocity. You could quit contributing tomorrow, cover your life with your paycheck, and still coast across the finish line years from now, purely on compounding you have already earned. The mechanism is simple once you see it. Growth on a big pile dwarfs anything you could shovel in by hand. So past a certain size, the pile out-earns you. Your contributions stop being the main character. The machine takes the lead. Most people never realize this moment exists. They think you grind right up until the very end. You do not. Somewhere around the middle, the grinding becomes optional. And this rung is where that door quietly opens. Unlock 2. 2,500 a month is a very specific amount, because for a lean, careful person, it is almost exactly the cost of staying alive. Think about what your essential bills actually are when you strip everything else away. Housing, a modest rent or a mortgage payment, food on the table, the utilities that keep the lights on and the water running, and transport, getting yourself to where you need to be. For a lot of people living simply, that entire survival stack lands right around $2,500 a month. And that is exactly what this rung hands to the machine. Not the vacations, not the restaurants, not the nice-to-haves, the core, the floor, the stuff that, if it vanished, would genuinely threaten your safety. Once the machine covers that, something profound shifts in how your job feels. Your paycheck is no longer paying the rent. The machine is. Your job has stopped funding your survival and started funding your life. The extras, the fun, the upgrades, the ambitions. You still work, but you are working for the icing now because the cake is already baked. And that changes the emotional weight of a bad day at work. A rough meeting, a difficult boss, a slow month. None of it can touch the roof over your head anymore because the roof is paid by something that cannot be fired. A person whose survival is handled by an asset, not by a boss, walks into every room a little differently. The fear is gone. What is left is choice. Unlock 3. In a two-earner household, this is the rung where one whole income becomes optional, and that reshapes a family's entire life, not just its budget. Picture a couple where both people work, and together their machine has climbed to $750,000. Now the machine covers the core bills, the survival floor for the household. Watch what that does to the math. Suddenly, one of those two paychecks is no longer load-bearing. It is not holding up the roof anymore. The machine is. And the moment a paycheck stops being essential, the person earning it gets options that simply did not exist before. They can downshift to a job that pays less but drains them less. They can leave the career that was slowly crushing them and try the one they always wanted. They can stay home with a new baby or an aging parent without the household falling apart. None of that is about being rich. It is about one income becoming a choice instead of a chain. Couples argue about money more than almost anything else, and a huge amount of that pressure comes from the feeling that both people are trapped, that neither can step back without sinking the ship. This rung quietly removes that trap for one of them. It does not just change the spreadsheet. It changes which lives are available to the two people living them. Unlock 4. Here is the reframe that changes everything at this rung. You do not have to take the $2,500 as cash. You can take it as time. Let me explain what I mean. Most people picture passive income as money arriving in an account, and that is one option. But the machine's real product is not dollars. It is freedom. And freedom can be spent in more than one currency. If the machine covers a chunk of your core, you can turn to your employer or to yourself and buy back your own days with it. Take the $2,500 as a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day one, letting the machine cover the 5th day. Take it as a sabbatical. 3 months off, funded by the pile while you keep your seed intact. Take it as the freedom to say no to the single worst part of your job, the client, or the shift or the commute that quietly costs you your evenings. The machine is not just an income stream, it is a device for buying back pieces of your one finite life. And time, unlike money, is the thing you can never earn more of. And there is a quiet math to it. $2,500 a month is roughly 1 working day a week for a lot of people. So this rung can literally purchase you a permanent 3-day weekend, funded forever by the pile. You are not spending the money. You are converting it dollars into hours at an exchange rate the machine holds open for the rest of your life. So at this rung, the smartest people often stop asking how much cash the machine throws off and start asking how many days it can hand back to them. That is the dividend that actually matters. Unlock 5. And this one is about your own head, because 750,000 is a psychologically strange place to stand. On paper, you are halfway. The top of the ladder is around 3 million, and you are sitting at 750,000, roughly the midpoint of the dollar distance. But here is the twist that almost nobody feels in their gut. The back half of this climb is faster than the front half. It took you years of grinding to build the first half, dollar by painful dollar, because early on the machine barely helped. But now the machine is enormous, and its own growth is doing more of the lifting than your contributions are. So the second half of the journey, the part that looks just as long on paper, actually arrives much sooner than the first half did. Compounding is backloaded. The biggest leaps happen near the end. And this is exactly where a dangerous trap appears, the one they call one more year. You get close, the machine is roaring, and a voice says, just one more year of contributing, just to be safe, just a little more cushion. And one more year becomes another, and another, and you trade away the very freedom you built the machine to buy. Halfway is where you must learn to trust the math, because the machine is now faster than your fear. Unlock 6, and I owe you honesty here, because this is the rung where a new risk quietly walks in the door. It is called sequence of returns risk, and it is the most important thing nobody tells you at this stage. Here is the plain version. When you are far from living off the machine, the order in which good and bad years arrive does not really matter. A crash early on is just cheap shares you get to buy. But once you are close to actually withdrawing from the pile, when the market moves, suddenly matters enormously. A big crash early in your withdrawal years does far more damage than the exact same crash later, because you are selling shares while they are down, and those sold low shares are never there to recover. Same average return, wildly different outcome, decided purely by timing. So what do you do about it? You do not panic, and you do not ignore it. As you approach the moment you lean on the machine, you start building a buffer, a cushion of cash and bonds, maybe a year or two of spending, that you can live on during a bad stretch, so you are never forced to sell stocks at the bottom. And you do not do something reckless like quitting your contributions on a single good day just because the number looked great that morning. Coast mode is a decision you ease into with a cushion, not a cliff you jump off on a green Tuesday. Name the risk, respect it, and plan around it. That is the honest way up. So how do you actually reach this rung? How do you get to 750,000 and step into coast mode with your eyes open? Here is the recipe, and it builds on everything below it. First, hit the number the boring way. Keep buying broad, low-cost index funds and automating the contribution every payday, exactly as you did on the lower rungs. The machine does not change, it just gets bigger. Second, and this is the lever most people ignore, lower the number itself by lowering your expenses. Remember, this rung is defined by your core bills, so a smaller, simpler life shrinks the pile you need to cover it. Trim the core and coast mode arrives sooner. You can meet the machine halfway. Third, guard your savings rate like it is the whole game, because it is. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is the fuel, and protecting it matters more than any clever investment pick. Fourth, as you get near this rung, start adding that bond and cash cushion we just talked about, so sequence risk cannot ambush you right as you lean on the machine. And fifth, watch out for lifestyle creep, because it is the silent killer here. Every time you raise your spending, you quietly raise the finish line. A bigger core needs a bigger pile, and the freedom you are about to reach slides further away. Keep the core lean, let the machine grow, add the cushion, and coast mode stops being a someday word.